If you're someone who loves to take advantage of bulk buying, but you tend to skip over the number 10 cans because you're not quite sure what to do with all of this product once it's open, well then today's video is for you. I'm going to walk you through the process of how to re-can this number 10 can of diced tomatoes. And if you're new to canning like I am, we're going to learn this new skill set together that is going to not only save tons of money, but as we turn this one large can into 6 realistic serving sizes, it's going to help us get those pantry shelves stocked fast. Well, hi there, friend. Welcome back. If you're new here, my name is Luann, and I am so glad that you're here today. Okay, friend, before we jump into this process, I'm going to go ahead and show you all of the equipment that is going to be needed for this. If I happen to leave something out, then we'll pick it up along the way, but I'm pretty sure that I have everything here. Of course, you're going to need your number 10 can of diced tomatoes. I am going to be processing these into pint-sized jars, so you're going to need those. I have a slotted spoon. You're also going to need a jar lifter to get your jars out of the hot water. We have a funnel. If you don't have one of these, that's fine. You can just use a ladle instead. The funnel is great to have because it's going to help you get your product into the jar a little more cleanly and neatly. You're also going to need a heavy towel. This is just a regular dish towel. This is what I am going to use as a debubbler. But if you don't have one of these, you can just use a popsicle stick or a skewer, something that is plastic or wooden. This is my magnet to get the lids out of the warm water to put on the jar. And I know before anyone says anything, that is no longer a requirement, but some people still prefer to do that. I also have my water bath canner here. You don't have to invest any money at all actually into this. If you have a large pot that will hold your pint-sized jars and allow enough room to add at least 1 to 3 inches of water above the top of the jar. It also must have a lid. Now this canner, I also did not invest a lot of money. I got this at an estate sale for $5. It was brand new, and that is what I will be using today. Now, the last thing that I have laying here, and we'll go over all of this in detail as we go along. This is the Ball Blue Book, the Guide to Preserving. I used this to get my recipe or as a comparison guide of how long I am going to water bath these jars. My goal in this video is to alleviate any fears that you may have. Now, the final thing that we're going to need is another pot that is large enough to hold the contents of the number 10 can. Now, before we jump into processing these diced tomatoes, I want to share with you some of the advantages of doing this, along with some of the disadvantages and the warnings that are out there about doing this. Now, the advantages are pretty obvious. The first one being the serving size. Unless you're cooking for a large function or catering something, this is going to be way too much for your average family. Another advantage of recanning these number 10 cans is also quite obvious, and that is the savings. This is somewhere that you're going to have to do your own math, but in most cases, when buying in bulk like this, it's going to be a lot cheaper than if you were to buy the individual cans. Also, after we recan these into pint-sized jars, you're getting a full 16-ounce can. And I know that sometimes the cans aren't a full 16 ounces. You may get anywhere from 10 to 14 ounces when you buy these individually on the shelf, and it is at a much higher price per ounce. Another advantage of recanning these is it is a quick and easy way to stock your shelves. And lastly, another advantage that I want to mention to you is it's a great way to learn a new skill set if you have never canned before. The work is already done for you because this has already been canned. So you know that it has all of the acid and the ingredients that are necessary to safely can these. And so it's a great way to build up that confidence as you begin your canning journey, like I am. And now to talk about some of those disadvantages. Right off the top, I have to let you know that this is not a USDA approved process. And I'm going to tell you why. In some cases, when a product is canned fresh, the cooking process, of course, is going to make that softer. When we reprocess this, it's going to get even thinner, which means it's going to settle more tightly in your jars. This could mean that the internal temperature of your jar may not reach the temperature necessary to kill off all the bacteria that could be introduced to this when we open it. In a minute, I'm going to share with you how I have overcome this obstacle, which brings me peace of mind, and I do feel that I can do this today safely. So you will have to decide how much is a disclaimer or how much is a 100% justified warning. And then the final disadvantage or warning that I need to put out there, well, when we break the seal of this can, we are reintroducing the internal product to the outside world again. So as with any canning process or food preservation process, make sure that all of your surfaces, all of your utensils, and your hands are as clean as they can be before you start this process. Even with clean surfaces, there can even be bacteria in the air. So these are all things to take into consideration. And now I will share with you how I overcame this obstacle. I looked in several canning books. And instead of looking at the processing times for diced tomatoes or whole tomatoes, I looked at the thinner tomato products like tomato sauces and spaghetti sauces. Because if this product is going to become thinner, I feel that it will settle into the jar more like a sauce. And so I feel that if a processing time is good for a fully packed sauce, then I feel that it'll be just fine for a chunkier version of a tomato sauce using these diced tomatoes. Now, these are all things that you're going to have to take into consideration when you choose what it is that you're going to recan in your number 10 cans. I plan on doing plenty more videos like this with different products. So today I am going to stay focused on the diced tomatoes. They are considered an acidic food, but some types of tomatoes do not have enough acidity to it to do the water bath canning safely. So when you're recanning these number 10 jars and you go to purchase them, take a look at the ingredients and make sure that one of the ingredients is citric acid. This one does have citric acid in it, and so that tells me that all of the added acidity is already included in this number 10 can. If yours does not include citric acid or some form of added acid, then you are going to have to do that yourself. That's not something that I'm going to get into in this video. My suggestion for you is to do like I did and find one that already has it in the ingredients. Most fruits, tomato-based products, mustard, ketchup, sauerkraut, pickles, all of these high-acid foods are going to more than likely be perfectly safe to recan using the water bath method. My suggestion and advice to you, if you are new to canning like I am, and you want to stick with the water bath method for now, then I would suggest sticking to your high acid food items. I hope this answered a lot of your questions. If you have other questions that you would like to ask me about this process, of course, list them down below in the comments, and I will do my very best to get those answers to you. Now, before we get into the actual process, I want to point something else out to you. If you're new to canning, you may not know this, but on the bottom of your jars, this is the Kerr brand jars, are a list of detailed instructions. You can see here that one side is all about water bath canning and the other side is pressure canning. It gives you step-by-step instructions, and at the bottom it even has the altitude chart. So in case you didn't take the time to look at the bottom of your boxes and you didn't know that this existed, here it is. Okay, so I think I shared everything with you that I needed to. So let's go ahead and jump into the process. And the first step is going to be to take 6 of these pint-sized jars. I'm going to remove the lids and the rings and put them off to the side. And I'm going to place the glass jars down in the water bath canner. Divide the number of ounces in the can by 16 for pints or 32 for quarts. This will equal the number of jars needed. Fill your canner and jars with water and begin heating over medium-high heat. This will be very heavy, so you can do this at the stove with the water pitcher instead. Now open the can of tomatoes and add them to your other pot and begin heating them over medium-high heat as well. Now this is the step that is optional. While I do not boil the lids, I still prefer heating the lids over low heat just to slightly soften the gum rim. While these are heating, it's a great time to get your jar lifter, debubbler, funnel, vinegar, and towels ready. Stir often when heating the tomatoes to be sure they're heated through. The goal isn't to boil, but to heat just to the boiling point. You're going to want to see a lot of steam. These look just right and the jars are starting to boil, so now it's time to begin filling the jars. Carefully remove 3 of your jars. I only do 3 at a time to keep everything nice and hot. With a slotted spoon, loosely fill the jars with the tomatoes, leaving 1-inch headspace. This can be determined by filling just to the bottom rim of the jar. Now with a ladle, begin adding the liquid, being sure not to go over the 1-inch mark. Grab your debubbler and run it down the sides of the jar to release any air bubbles or pockets of air in the jar. To ensure a good seal, wipe the rims of the jar with the vinegar and a clean cloth or paper towel. With your lid lifter, place the warm lids on the jars. As you can see, the water is warm to the touch. Add your rings to the jars and tighten finger tight. Carefully place the jars in the canner with the jar lifter and repeat the process with the rest of the jars. I'm brand new to canning and I'm so happy to be sharing this journey with you. I have done tons of research and of course I welcome any advice or experiences that you may want to share with us. My goal is to create safe and well-informed videos to help anyone else that may be new to canning. Okay, now that we have all the jars in the canner, finish adding any water needed to cover the jars by at least 1 inch of water. Place the lid on top, and when the water begins to boil, set your timer for 40 minutes. It is important not to remove the lid once the timer is set, or you will have to start your timer over. Also, you can lower the heat to medium if it begins to run over, but if the water stops boiling, you'll need to start your timer all over again. When time is up, turn off the heat and set the timer again for 5 more minutes. Then you can safely remove the lid and remove the jars to a towel. Allow your jars to set for 24 hours. As the jars cool, you will hear your lids ping as the suction pulls the lids down into a tight seal. At the end of the 24 hours, you can test your seal by removing the rings, and you should be able to lift the jar by the lid. And the center of the lid should feel tight and smooth when pressed. Well, friend, if you enjoyed this video or any of the other videos on this channel, the best way to show your support is to give us a big thumbs up. Thanks so much, friend, for spending your time with me today. I look so forward to seeing you in the next one. Bye.